Kitchen is literally what the name, literally, it's a big kitchen that everyone eats around. And it's a food curious space. So I know it's a vegan restaurant, but sometimes labels, I don't particularly like to work with labels, and there's an ethos that, there's a style of, like every chef has a different style of cooking, and you know, everyone has a different diet, and people have been eating differently all around the world for years. But I don't like to fit into a category. So I call it a food curious space because food to me is larger than life, and it's not just sustenance. Like from one ingredient you can understand the history of a country, how like people ended up here, why they did that. Like you can understand spirituality, you can understand history, economics, nature, like, yeah, so it's like one ingredient explains the world to you, in my opinion. This place has been open for almost 4 years now. I opened 6 months before the pandemic. So that was interesting. That was like a crash course in running a restaurant. And I do one dish that changes every day. And there's many reasons for that. One is I find I would get bored doing the same thing every day. Two is there's just too many fruits and vegetables and herbs and spices to play with, and then every vegetable now you can do like 10 different things with it. So you're multiplying that, and I think for curious, creative people, you know, like you're never satisfied. You're just hungry to keep seeing what can this do for me. The other thing is I've been in Jamaica for 8 years now, and there's beautiful produce that grows here. Like there's something about tropical climates and the sun and the soil, and you just get you get amazing produce out here. And that's something I like to, sometimes you have to go out and hunt for it and look for it, but I like understanding a place, and then I can merge that with my culture and my background, so that you kind of end up with a hyphenated cuisine. And I'm just cooking my life. That's what I say. I think most chefs are just cooking their life, or they're expressing their beliefs and, you know, everything through a plate. So you're being very, very vulnerable. You're putting a plate forward, and you're saying, "This is me," you know. And I hope you like it. So this is what I have to say. So yeah. So it's been a beautiful experience. Obviously, ups and downs like any business. But it's been beautiful, and the people who come here, it's formed a community. So I get a lot of regulars at this point. They're not all vegan. I get like maybe 50% vegan. I get, you know, like what we call Flexetarian now. I mean, there's so many labels in food world. Sometimes I just like to drop that. And then you get people who are just trying to eat more vegetables.
I think I fall in that category.
Yeah.
I love vegetarian food. I just need to eat more or need to eat less meat, and I think people aren't aware that how many good options there are for vegan and vegetarian. It's like they don't know what they don't know, and if they did, they would probably eat a lot less meat.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't like to. I really this is something like that's so central to me. Whatever you eat, that's your decision. I don't think food should be like a terrorist religion. And I just, like, what you eat, as long as it works for you and it makes you feel good, that's the most important thing. Like, I don't think you can impose things on people. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe when you're 50 years old, your body will change and it will start craving other things. And I think for women especially, because we go through so many hormone changes through our lifetime, yeah, I think you have to honor and respect that. So I don't like to get into the like vegan versus meat eaters versus
ovo-lacto versus.
No, it's just
very
like
complicated.
No, I think the beautiful thing is nature, especially in Jamaica, is absolutely stunning, and just use it all. Like those plants are there for a reason. There's like 10,000 plants, and we're just eating 10 of them. We're eating like the same 10 crops. But there's 10,000 things out there, you know, and like we should be eating them all. In my opinion, my opinion, no one has to agree, because they're all different. They have different nutritional profiles. They have different seasonalities, and the more diverse your diet is, the more you tap into different nutrients. So that's the philosophy that I'm coming from, and I could talk for a very long time.
I'm sure you could. When I first heard you had the different menu every day, at first I thought that sounds so difficult. But then, just like you mentioned, some restaurants have 100 things on the menu. So that is just equally difficult in a different way. It's almost like yours is more difficult creatively or supply chain wise, but in a way, it does simplify it in a beautiful way. So
and people come here. So like another interesting thing. So we write the menu on the board every morning, and 30% or 40% of the customers just walk in. They don't look at the menu, and they're like, "Whatever you cook, we'll have it."
Yeah.
And then you have some people who it's mostly on Instagram because that's the only social media platform I'm active on. That's where I share the menu. And then you have like people who are, I think, like religiously watching, what is it? And we've had some popular items, and I know on those days we're getting a big crowd. So that's how I can tell that people are reading the menu online. So for me it's fun. It's also inspired. It's like how I grew up learning how to cook. So my mom and my grandma, I come from a family where everyone cooked. And there's no like restaurant people in my family, but everyone really loves food and everyone loves to cook. And it was always like a social community thing. So my grandma, as a kid, I wasn't playing with a lot of toys. And she would just come and she's like, "Marianna, come help me sort the string beans. Like we have like 10 people to feed today." And I have a Middle Eastern background, so when you cook for like 10 people, you're cooking for 100 really. So yes, I would just sit with like my grandma and my mom, and just we grew up in that culture. And I think humans have always cooked that way. I think they've always helped each other out. Like, it was never a solo thing, because I hear people saying, "Oh, cooking is a chore." And yeah, it's a chore when you're doing it on your own and you have like 10,000 other things to do. But I think the way cooking was designed is it was done as a community activity with family, with neighbors, with friends. And people ate wholesome food made from scratch because they all helped each other out. And now we don't help each other out as much. So yeah, people just want convenience. They just want the drive-through, they want the microwave meal. Like, that's kind of how I understand it. So yeah, so my family grew up, whatever was available. They're like, okay, like we'll put something together with this, and it was very intuitive, and I think I'm reflecting that here at the kitchen.
How has it been building relationships with local farmers? Like you said, you get different ingredients based on availability or even economics. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about that.
So that's a good question. So I work with many farmers. Some of them, I work with them like weekly. And then some of them pop in and out. So I would say you have two sets of people in Jamaica, from my humble observation. You have people just growing the classic produce, which is like cabbage, pak choy, pumpkin, banana, yam, like the classic Jamaican basket.
Scallion thyme.
Right, yeah, those very classic, beautiful flavors. And then you have people who want to go wild and experiment and grow, pink radish and heirloom red carrots and broccoli. Like, they want you to try the broccoli leaf and the sweet potato leaf. And then you also have the ethnic communities, which plays a big role here.
Yeah.
Huge role, which are, the Chinese and the Indian. And they have, like, if you go to one of their stores, you're seeing like a whole different set of produce there.
Yeah.
You're seeing like Chinese eggplants, you're seeing bitter melon, you're seeing loofah, you're seeing winter melon, like you're seeing completely different things there. So what I do is I work with all three. I work with like the classic, the experimental, and then the ethnic. And I'm just constantly hunting for goods, basically. And so like it's a mix between me looking and them coming to me. And then over the years, what's happened, I think they know that I'm open to trying new things. So what I get is a lot of people contacting me saying that, hey, I'm growing something. I don't know if anyone's gonna buy it, but I feel like you might. And I'm like, just come, you know. Like I take everything. I take everything. Like yesterday, one of the farmers I really like, his name is Oliver, up in Newcastle. So Oliver, I never know when he's gonna show up.
Yeah.
So it might be like, I never know when he's gonna show up. So, but I know when he comes, he has something really nice for me, and I can't turn it down. So I just take it, and then and sometimes like my menu ideas are born from that also. So that's how I think everywhere in the world you have that. You have farmers who are selling the classic like in-demand goods, and then you have the farmers who just have this passion and they want to grow new things and everything. And then you have the ethnic communities, which plays a really important role everywhere in the world.
What's one of the more rare items or unique food items that has come across lately?
What is rare and what? I mean, there's some like, okay, so like these are, you actually brought some for you to try because these are in season now.
Oh, wow. They look like baby mangoes.
So these are peaches.
Peaches,
These
okay.
are, have you tried these before?
Not this kind, I don't think.
This I figured, because I've watched your videos and I know you've tried them, but you haven't.
Some stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a local peach, which looks very different from the one you're probably seeing in Canada.
Yeah, we have much bigger, probably GMO-related, huge, round, chubby.
Right.
Very juicy and good.
Right,
but,
and sweeter also. So these are, it's hard to find information on this, but according to the research, these might be the wild peaches.
Like the
original
variety.
One, right, and which were endemic to China.
What?
From like 8,000. This is the only information I could find because I'm a big like nerd and I'll start reading like forever. So they're endemic to China, and you might assume that from China, the Chinese brought it here because you have a big Chinese community here. So like wild peaches is pretty cool. What today, I don't have anything to show you today. I'm trying to think like all the leaves. I like leaves in general.
Yeah.
Like broccoli leaves, sweet potato leaves. The things we toss out that are highly, like carrot tops, things that are highly nutritious. There's people growing heirloom seeds here. So I recently worked with a farmer who's growing like 60 different heirloom tomatoes.
Wow.
And hot peppers also. You like things like, okay, so something that's really special, I think, is like annatto, for example.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, annatto is a spice that's very, very endemic to the Caribbean.
Is that what Annatto Bay is named after then, on the North Coast?
Apparently, yeah.
Perhaps,
apparently, so it's a spice, and it gives a mild flavor, and it's a red food coloring.
Yeah.
And visually, it's stunning. Like visually, it's absolutely stunning. You have some like also crazy fruits out here. You have a lot of crazy fruits here, like alien-looking fruits out here.
Every time I've come here, there's been some fruit or something that I maybe looked over, but when I heard about it, it was actually new. There's a different kind of cherry I had last time I was here that apparently has a very short growing season, and because
is like small and red and tangy?
Red and has like 3 seeds in it.
Yeah, the West Indian cherry.
Yeah, and it's so good, but I think it's not even commercially. When I kind of get nerdy on it too, and it wasn't commercially viable to grow and make juice out of just because of the short growing season or how quickly it spoils. But it was so delicious, and I've just never had it in my whole life. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I think abroad that's what they call acerola.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, acerola comes from that.
No way.
So it's very strong, but yeah, it's very the shelf life is, and I think most people don't even sell it because they have it growing in their yards and they just eat it.
Yeah, they just have it for themselves and move on. So.
Yeah. There's also a fruit, a Brazilian fruit called Brazilian grape or jabuticaba.
Oh, I don't know that
So
one.
that one, when it grows on a tree, it looks like from outer space.
Yeah?
And it grows out here because it's a similar tropical climate.
Yeah.
So that's a cool one. And that one is also like just once a year very hyper seasonal.
So cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about your background? You said you were here for 8 years. Where were you living before, and how did Jamaica come across?
So I was living in the U.S. before, on the East Coast, Hoboken, which is like just at literally like on the Manhattan was just within a view. And yes, I lived there for 4 years, but to rewind. So my parents are from the Middle East. So my mom is Syrian, my dad is Egyptian. They left basically as immigrants in the 80s to Europe to build a better life. And I was born in Greece. I was just born there. And from there we moved to Switzerland, France. I moved back to Switzerland, back to France, the US, and then here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know the term for a first culture kid? Or third culture kid, what am I saying? Third culture kid, my brain. Third culture kid. So like, like child of immigrant parents and kind of lives in a world of two, like you don't know where you belong. In your home country, you're not enough of that. And then in your new home, you're not enough of that. So you kind of just end up just being yourself. And it's liberating but confusing at the same time. So anyways, I've always wanted to open a restaurant, and always. But I did corporate for 15 years. I did global marketing for 15 years, which I don't regret because it gave me a lot of experience that I need now. And I would say that to like anyone who has a dream out there, if you're kind of stuck doing a job that you didn't like envision yourself, doing, it's like you're doing it for a reason. And there's you learn from everything. And when you start your own thing, you're gonna need many skills to do your own thing. You're gonna be wearing many hats. So anyway, yes, I was doing global marketing, and then when I was living in the States, it was like culture shock from the vacation perspective.
Oh yeah.
And this might sound funny, but like in France you get like 6 weeks paid vacation.
Yeah.
And then in the US it went down to like 2. If you even do the 2 weeks, right? And it's even if you even take time off. So I was like, oh my gosh, like 2 weeks if I travel to Asia, that's like a whole week just that's like 3 days in a plane. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
So I'm like, I need to find something close by. So I take a map out, and I'm looking at destinations that are like 3 to 4 hours flights, with direct flights. So the Caribbean is obviously part of that. Yeah. And literally, like, I closed my eyes, pointed my finger, and it landed on Jamaica, and I was like, okay. I'm like, Jamaica is not, has never been like on my to-do list. Yeah. Like I'm like more of like an India and Mexico person, but I'm like, okay, we're going to Jamaica. At the time, there was a platform called Couchsurfing, like kind of a predecessor of Airbnb.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was great. It was actually like it was a great experience, like great platform for people who, are traveling and genuinely want to understand the culture and live with a local and understand, they don't want the whole hotel polished experience. So I was using Couchsurfing a lot at the time. I went on Couchsurfing, found a family that hosted me in Corville Gardens in Kingston. And I still remember the day I got here. It was an evening flight. So I landed in Kingston. It was like 8 p.m. And I'm just like, I'm open to whatever. Like, whatever happens, I'm open to it. And we drove to Corville Gardens. And I have no clue, like, I don't really know where I am because it's night. And then I wake up the next day and it's just exploring Kingston. Later on that same trip, I went to Portland. And I just really loved this place. I really loved it. Like, I didn't come here for the music. I didn't come here for other things that sometimes get stereotyped. I just came here because it was like 3 hours away, and it was 3 hours away, and I loved it. And I saw something I could recognize here, because obviously, you're coming from like from the U.S., which is very modern and everything. And I'm not saying Jamaica is not modern. That's not what I'm saying. Because I don't like this developed country language again. But like it has its issues like any other place in the world. But I liked it. It felt liberating. So what happened is from that first trip, I came back 7 times. And each time I was couch surfing, eventually went to Airbnb, and I just met wonderful people. I met a lot of creative people, and I think that's probably my crowd, like a lot of visual artists, just amazing people, and they kept me, they had, I felt like every time I came here, I felt it started to become like home. And I was doing a lot of grassroots projects in inner cities. So I spent a lot of time in downtown Kingston, just doing various grassroots projects. And and then one day I quit my job. Eventually I quit my job, which I had always wanted to do anyway. Yeah. And I said, I'm taking a year off, and I need to know what I'm doing next now. Like, it's been 15 years of me doing this thing.
Yeah.
And I want to do what I've always dreamt of doing. So I came here for 6 months, did a big street art project with like 30 different artists here downtown. It was called Paint Jamaica. So that was in 2014. And then the other 6 months I traveled all over. But every time I went to a place, I felt like I wanted to come back here. So one day I decided that I want to move, I want to live and work in Jamaica. And anyone I had met previously, because remember, I don't have family here, I'm out here on my own. So I'm a bit like you, like I think there's some travelers that come here on their own, and they didn't have like an uncle or an aunt here. They just came and kept coming back, and exactly. So I think you can relate to that.
I can.
Yeah. And you've been coming here like several times now.
I've been coming here since 2010. Sometimes 3 times a year. So
yeah, so you understand what I'm talking about.
A little bit. I still feel like I don't know the real vibe because I haven't lived here for a long time. So I feel like I get a little taste. So, but to see it and to see it change and feel that familiarity, and sometimes I really do feel like a place almost has a soul and a vibe that accepts you as a person.
Yes.
It's not you accepting the place, it's the place accepting you. And I feel like I've felt that here, so maybe you felt that as well.
I think so, yeah, because some travelers do the resort experience, some people do like the backpacking hardcore experience, and some people just come on their own, and they just, I don't know, that maybe like what you said, you actually explained it quite beautifully. So I ended up, all the people I met, I just sent my resume to everyone, and I'm like, I have a background in marketing, if you can hire me. Because I need a work permit to stay here, and I wasn't gonna get married. So and eventually I got a job, did that for 3.5 years, and then I had 2 months left on my work permit when I left that job, and I said, it's now or never, open the restaurant. And in 2 months, I went like straight from that into this. And I found this spot eventually, and it's just been,
Well, congratulations!
Thank
it's so
you.
Epic. I mean,
Thank you.
Number one, having a business going 4 years that started pre-pandemic. Number two, also just following something you always want to do, because a lot of people have the idea, but they never pull the trigger. So those are just 2 massive things that you've done and are doing still. So
well, you have to do what you love. It might not come immediately, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
It will find you. Like, you can't run away from your passion.
True. And it is such a unique thing. I've heard multiple people tell me about this place in different circles, and it's so awesome to be here.
And then one thing I just want to say, one thing I really love about this space, because it's like, it's misleading. The address is what you would call Uptown Jamaica.
Yeah.
And people might be like, oh my gosh, like a certain type of person eats there, and it must be like unaffordable and everything, but it's actually the complete opposite of that. So I made it a point from the start that I wanted my prices to be accessible, because I think I'm tired of hearing people saying vegan food is expensive, it's not it doesn't taste good, I eat it and then I'm still hungry. Like, I got so tired of that. So I'm like, I have to make it accessible. And what I end up getting here is like a melting pot of so many different people, of so many different socio-economic backgrounds. But if they all sat around a table, they could all get along. So there's a certain, it's not a social background that brings people together here. It's more like a mental, like a lifestyle. Like, I think values. People share similar values here. And they might be like a businessman, they might be a student, they might be a singer, they might be a fashion designer, they might be a politician, you know, they might be a priest, because we like, everything I said is what we get here. So, yeah, I get like mission, like everything. And, but they all share a similar value. And I love that. I really, really love that. So like food can bring people together.
Absolutely.
In a really powerful way, yeah.
And I think maybe there's an impression that if you go to Jamaica, there's going to be so much vegetarian and ital options because of the Rasta culture. But if you actually drive around Jamaica, it's not that easy to find vegetarian or especially vegan food. Yes, in Kingston there are some ital spots, but if you go to a city the size of even Morant Bay, as far as I know, there's one ital restaurant that's just a little bit out of town. In the actual city itself, there's nothing. Now, I can't speak for everywhere, but it's not as common as you would think. So you have a real niche, I think, here.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how to explain that one. I guess outside of, like in country, people are maybe cooking for themselves more, and I would guess there's a culture of more of that. But yeah, I think everywhere in the world, people are looking for more wholesome food. I think so.